Welcome to Breaking Silence, a safe and brave space where we have real conversations about race in America.
Hi everyone, welcome back. We were inspired by the Put a Finger Down challenge to do our own Breaking Silence version. So we're going to share that with you now. Some of the questions are surprises for us and some we know about, so it'll be interesting to see how we do. Ready, Jen?
I'm ready. Put a finger down if you regularly have to code switch. Put a finger down if you or someone you love have ever received the talk. Put a finger down if you've ever been told you are articulate. Put a finger down if someone has asked to touch your hair or has touched it without asking. Put a finger down if you've had a friend tell you to be careful posting these videos. Put a finger down if anyone in your family has said something racist since George Floyd's death. Put a finger down if you've deleted a Facebook friend due to their views on race in America. Put a finger down if you saw anti-4th of July content on your social media. Put a finger down if you reached out to any of your Black friends during the racial injustice surge in May and June. Put a finger down if you know what an Uncle Tom is. Put a finger down if your favorite movie has a Black actor in it. Put a finger down if you've ever had to ask a hairstylist if they can work with your hair. Put a finger down if the CEO of your company is the same color as you. Put a finger down if your boss is the same color as you.
Oh, we have the same amount of fingers left. I think that was 15 questions.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that you knew what an Uncle Tom was.
I think we read that book.
Okay, wait, so maybe we should clarify. What is your understanding of what an Uncle Tom is?
Isn't it like a Black person who gets along better or like acquiesces to white people? Something like that? No?
Okay.
Is that,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's exactly.
Kind of like a traitor or somebody that like placates white people more to get an upper hand or to enjoy the finer things in life and kind of leaves behind their blackness or their Black community.
Well, maybe, yeah. Then in that case, I probably, like, I don't know if I understood it to the extent of it being like someone who's a traitor or denying their history. Just like more someone who is trying to fit in more with white people.
That's it. And that's it. But in a way that's like very like kiss assy to the point of like they would hurt a Black person to gain favor for the white people. And it's
okay, maybe not.
Maybe you didn't understand it like that?
Well, maybe like not to the intensity. Like I had an idea, but not to the level of intensity is the only word I can think of.
It's a negative thing that usually Black people call each other. Like it would, and it's a pretty hurtful thing for a Black person to call you an Uncle Tom. Like I've seen people like burst into tears, families being torn apart because of it. Like it's not like something to be taken lightly. So yeah.
Yeah, I've never actually heard it used like in regular speech. Like aside from if you read about it or something like that.
Yeah. It seems like to me, in my opinion, my experience, it seems to be like an antiquated thing. Like I don't know that like young people are using it. It seems to be like an older thing. Okay. So anything else in that list surprise you in terms of what you were able to put a finger down or what I was able to put a finger down?
Well, the talk thing was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jen and I were both shocked. We had to pause the video because when we heard, have you ever had the talk? like both of our minds went to the sex talk, like the birds and the bees. And so we were real confused for a second, to the point where we had to stop. And I texted my friend who gave us some questions, and I'm like, what does the talk mean?
But we had an inkling. We did have an inkling. We're like, we think it might be this, but we need to confirm that this is really what it is.
So I asked her, like, what did you mean by the talk? Like, is it the sex talk? And she was like, really shocked that we didn't know. She was like, no, like when your parents have to tell you that you'll be treated differently because you're Black, or has a conversation with you about how to avoid police brutality or whatever. And so, yes, like Jen said, we had the inkling. And so we were like, oh, maybe it's this, or maybe it's the sex talk, but maybe she's trying to see if like different races have the sex talk in the same way. Okay, no, it wasn't that. It was definitely the talk about how parents set their kids up to exist in this world as someone who's an other or different. So Jen, you said that you had, and the talk is like, there's a lot of things that could go into the talk, right? How to interact with police is one of them. And so you have actually had a talk about interacting with police.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting, right? Because you and I can't remember how long ago we actually had this conversation, but there was another social media post where an influencer was talking about privilege. And let me just be clear that I am not saying that white privilege does not exist. I am not saying that I do not have privilege. Okay, put that out there. So I'm not saying that. But one of the examples that she gave, there were many. One of them was the fact that when she got her driver's license, like her dad sat her down and explained to her what to do during a traffic stop in order to make sure that the cop felt comfortable. And it was interesting to me because all of the things that she said were the same type of instructions that my dad gave me when I had my learner's permit and I was learning how to drive. So he said, okay, you're going to roll your window down all the way. If it's nighttime, you're going to turn your dome light on. You're going to put your hands on the steering wheel at 11 and 2 o'clock or whatever. So like the cop can see your hands. You're going to wait until you're spoken to. Obviously, he's going to ask for license and registration. You're going to ask for permission to open your glove compartment. You're going to tell him where your wallet is in your purse. Like you're going to say like, I'm about to do this, and then have him tell you, okay. And then you're going to do it. Right. And so I was like, okay, well, this is really interesting because if she's sharing this as an example of white privilege, and I don't think that my experience is some magical unicorn, like I'm sure that there are other people that have had this conversation, that this could be one of those things where lines of communication get crisscrossed, right? Because she is saying this is an example of privilege, and yet that experience is not unique to her as a Black person. But when you and I talked about it, I don't know if you want me to share, if you want to share, but when we talked about it, it's like the difference is that like race wasn't part of it for me. It's like, you're going to do this because it's what helps the officer feel more comfortable. It's going to prevent the situation from escalating, but there is not that undercurrent of like, you need to really make sure that you're doing this because you're discriminated against, right? Or you're automatically viewed as more threatening or potentially dangerous, shady, whatever term you want to use. And so again, not saying that I don't have privilege, just that is like an example of where I could see somebody saying, oh, here's an example of white privilege, and a white person saying, well, that's not privilege because like my dad did the same thing with me, and therefore I'm going to jump to this conclusion that white privilege, it's a myth, right? It doesn't exist. And that's not really the case. It's just that there is this really important piece of context that may not be stated explicitly when a Black person is like sharing that. Because I think it's just understood, like this, like the talk, right? Like if we were all sitting in a meeting room with your friend and she was like, oh yeah, I just sat down with my kids last weekend and have the talk, Aziza and I are thinking, oh, like they're growing up, they got to learn how to be responsible. and I mean, yeah, about being responsible, but we're going to be thinking that they're having the sex talk and she's talking about something completely different. And
I
we
think
hear that we're talking about different things. Go ahead.
I think what you call out is a good point, because it's the why, right? That's what I was trying to share with you. It's, yes, your dad had the same conversation with you, but it's the why behind why he had that conversation with you, and why Black parents and brown parents have that conversation. And I think, this is one example, but I think it can be broadened, because I see often white people saying, oh, but that happened to me too, or oh, that happened to me too, oh, that happened to me too. And what, it's not, oh, did this happen to you too? The question that you need to ask yourself is, what was the context in which this happened to me? Why did this happen to me? And is it any different? Would it be any different if I were brown? Is it any different for this Black person? Because I think, having that talk, and for you in your mind, not even having to cross your mind like, oh, it's because they might not like who I am, and they might think that I'm different because of something that I can't, like, you don't even have that thought cross your mind. Whereas a child or a young adult is being told, you are different, you cannot do anything about it, and people dislike you or treat you worse because of it. So imagine, like, not only that milestone of the talk, but what that does again for that person's psyche, and how they see themselves, and how they're interpreting other people seeing them. It's just another data point that we have to know that, or to feel that we're less than.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I thought it was really funny. I even asked my friend, I said, well, can you ask your husband, like, are you sure that the talk is only this? And of course, she asked her husband, who is Black. He's Jamaican. And he responded the same thing, that when you got to talk about how white people will do you wrong. So I guess that is something that we didn't know. Okay. What else? Anything else from that list?
Well, and what that brings up for me, and again, this may be this may be a reaction that is like similar to like what they're talking about on white fragility. I don't know, but what that I feel like I need to share, I'm not really being fully genuine, but like what that brings up to me is like, but it's not all white people. Like, not all white people are going to do you wrong, right? Like, it makes me sad. Makes me sad.
It's true, but you have to exist in the world where you do have to question all white people, and
I
you
know.
think.
I'm not saying it's not true.
Well, it might not be true. Actually, now that I'm saying that, I'm like, oh, I'm speaking for the public, and there might be people that are like, no, we don't have to act that way. But I guess, in my opinion, we have to start there and say, this is how this group of people sees me. So to be safe, I need to have that in my mind so that I can act and adjust accordingly. But some people, I'm sure some people, even some Black people, would say, no, that's not how we need to act. We need to assume best intent. We need to do blah, blah, blah. So
that's what I want to say, but then I feel like it's because I'm not living it, and so I don't know the experience, so I don't get to say that.
True.
I'm not allowed to say, well, not that I'm not allowed to say that. I'm not in the position to speak to that. But what I want, like, if I think ideally how I want our world to be, it is that we can assume positive intent and give people the benefit of the doubt and see the best in people. And it's hard because there are people that, like we talked about in prior video, right? There are people that believe that they're better because they're lighter, and they do treat people poorly because they're darker. And so, I mean, there's no litmus test to say, like, okay, well, when you meet somebody, have them take this breathalyzer and it'll tell you if they are discriminatory or, hateful or not. Like, that doesn't, so it makes sense that, okay, if I come across wild mushrooms, I do not know which wild mushrooms are poisonous and which ones are edible. And so do you know what I do? I don't eat wild mushrooms. So, like, I get it. I'm just sad that it's that way.
Okay, what about the question, put a finger down if you've had a friend tell you to be careful posting these videos. You put your finger down.
My husband told me.
Ooh, okay. So I'm interested in knowing, like, the why. So because I wonder what, because we didn't specify black or white, so you know, you could have had black or white people or a Dominican husband tell you. And then same thing for me. I'm interested in what if the whys for the two of us might be different.
Are the same or not.
Yeah.
So I mean, he and I didn't get into all of the whys, but if I could share from my own perspective some of the things that we were thinking about. I mean, obviously, the content that we're putting out is a very controversial subject. The way in which we are putting the content out is pretty raw. So, like, we are not creating scripts. We are not writing down what we want to say before we say it. Like, we are trying to model how you really fumble through these conversations in a way that you're still doing it, but you may say something wrong and the other person's not jumping down your throat because you didn't say it right the first time. And so because of that, we have the opportunity to trigger a lot of people, not purposely, like we're not coming out here to be purposefully triggering in any way, or, you know, like we're not Howard Stern, but it could happen. And that I think especially, well, I won't say especially, but I mean, there's people that seek out retribution for those types of things, or you have backlash. So some of the conversations, it's like, okay, like you're going public with this. People know who you are. They can see who you are. I mean, Aziza and I had conversations about possibly doing it as a podcast, and that didn't really seem to make sense given that it's about race. And so we thought that the viewers should be able to see how we look. So we're doing a video podcast. You know, we want to be transparent. We put our full names out there. And so, like, even business prospects, future job opportunities, all sorts of things that if we're putting out this content could potentially be barriers in the future. And what made me decide to move forward with it anyway is that if I'm interacting with someone, like, I'm not coming on here and saying horrible things about people or telling people that they're wrong, right? Like, I'm expressing how I feel about things. I'm listening to you about how you feel about things. We're sharing our experiences. And so if I encounter somebody in the future who feels so anti what I'm speaking for, that they're like, well, I don't want to hire you, I probably don't want to work for that person anyway. So that was what was kind of the deciding factor of, you know, those things could happen. Do I care? And are they really doing me a favor? If I don't think that I'm so extreme that I ought to be alienating people unless they really are so far on that spectrum of discrimination that thank you for letting me know up front that that's what you feel and what you believe in. Yeah. And then, you know, we took some precautions in regards to like our home address and things like that. So just in case, but that was some of the conversation that he and I had and talked through.
Nice.
How was your, because I know you had folks say similar things to you, right? To be careful. Was it similar or different?
It was different. The one thing that that's top of my mind is a friend telling me, like, be careful how you come off, because you don't want to come off as a Black person who's speaking on these subjects and is not fully educated on all of the subjects. And I think what you and I, our vision for this was that we weren't experts, we weren't 100% educated and, you know, well-versed in every single thing we were going to talk about. But like you said, like, we're modeling how it is to fumble through it and to talk through it and to challenge each other, challenge ourselves. And so for me, and I think along the lines of what you were saying too, is that yes, there's an opportunity to get dragged. There's the opportunity to have some haterade on the internet, but the impact and what we're trying to do was more valuable for us, or heavier for us, than the risk of that. So yeah. Okay. And I think there was one other question. I'm just looking.
Well, while you're thinking, there was one I don't know if everyone knows, but I was like kind of thinking about it, and it was the your favorite movie has a character that is Black. And I hesitated because it's an animated movie and one of the voice characters is Black, but the animated character is not Black.
So, okay, but I asked you what your favorite movies were. You gave me 3 options and none of them were this animated one, right?
Emperor's New Groove is animated.
Oh, okay. So who is it that's the voice character?
Bertha Kitt, right?
Oh, as what? I didn't even know this.
Yzma. But Yzma is not, she's not Black in the, I didn't put my finger down. I didn't say it counted because the character is depicted as white.
Oh, okay. I'm looking this up. I did not realize that. And I don't know why, but I thought Eartha Kitt was like not doing things anymore.
Well, she's dead now.
Yeah, like that's what I thought. And when was this movie?
She's not doing things right now. That movie is like 18 years old. That movie's old.
Oh.
Old. We are old.
Okay, well, sad.
Anything else for you?
No, I think, I mean, we asked a question about the July 4th content, which I think that has to do a lot with social media. And I think we're going to get into that in a future episode. So I can't wait to dig into that because that's been definitely mind-blowing for me. But besides that, I think that's it. And you? Oh, wait, let me just correct myself. When you put your finger down, like, has anybody ever asked to touch your hair or touched your hair without asking? And then you put your finger down. I was just like, I guess I was irked. I was like, okay, well, I'm sure there's a lot of these things that either privilege, an indicator of privilege, an indicator of a microaggression or whatever, that white people can also say, oh yeah, that happened to me too. And I guess it just irked me because we hadn't yet like talked through fully, but it goes back to that thing of why it's happening to you versus why it's happening to me. And I think that's the part of the conversation, like you've said a couple times, is left out. And that's why these two people or two sides are like, this is not a big deal. Like, okay, you're claiming this, I can claim this too. Or people like me, I don't might get irked when you say that. I'm like, gosh, okay.
I didn't say anything.
We can't say it in the middle of it. We're doing it, so I can't say it then. But I'm like, ugh. Like, of course, there's things that white people are going to be like, oh yeah, that happens to me too. But it goes back to the why. Like, why are people touching your hair? And why are people touching my hair? And why is that a microaggression for me? And why is it not for you?
Oh no, it pisses me off.
Yeah, but is it a microaggression for you? Like, well, it pisses you off. The same thing, like you brought up, like people touching pregnant ladies' bellies. Yeah, but is it a microaggression? So, and maybe again, that's the part of the conversation that's missed. So people hear that, and a white person is like, "Stop complaining. That happens to me too." And a black person is like, "I cannot believe they're like just saying that this happens to them too. You guys totally don't get it." And then we move on instead of saying, "Okay, this happens to you. When you said that, that really irked me because we're talking about this, and you're claiming it too. And the difference is blah blah blah."
So what would have been, well, I think it's interesting that it irks you, like that you are actually annoyed that I have had multiple people touch my hair without asking me permission. And the reason they do it, they're like, oh, it looks silky. And they'll like run their fingers and touch my hair. So they want to like comb their fingers through my hair. And again, I get it's not the same thing. So like, what would have been a better way to ask the question? Like, would it have been, you've had somebody touch your hair because they wanted to just like know what it felt like, or because they're not black, or maybe you've had somebody of the opposite race touch your hair, or like what would have been clear?
I don't exactly think that there's a better way to ask the question. I think it's just the fact that we don't get irked or feel like, oh, this is not a big deal, and then move on. But it's actually like, okay, why why does this keep coming up for Black people? Like, this happens to me too. Like, I'm saying if I were you, right? Like, this happens to me too. Why does this keep coming up for Black people? Or why are you considering it a microaggression? Like, it pisses me off and it's annoying to me, but I don't know that I would call it an aggression. So something like that. Or like you said, like if the question was, put a finger down if somebody of the opposite race touched your hair. Because then that it's a different conversation automatically. But I don't know that we have to change the question. I think we have to change hear the answer and move on.
Yeah. And because I'm not, like, I didn't put my finger down to prove a point or to be like, see, that's not like a thing. It was just like, has that happened? Yes, it's happened. And I get that it's different. And I'm sure that, like, if I'm thinking of examples, it was, I mean, it's probably been years since somebody has done that. Maybe it's because my hair is not pretty anymore. But, you know, I'm sure that there's probably a difference too in like age and maturity, and like whether you're in college or a young professional versus like now as a grown woman. I can't recall a time that it's happened recently, and that's probably not the case for many Black people. If I had to guess, I don't really know, but
yeah,
does it happen a lot more frequently for you?
I don't know if it's a lot more frequently. It's well, a lot more recently. Like, it happens since I'm an adult. It happens as I'm in the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, the last time it happened to me, I was working, but it was probably like 2013, 14 timeframe. That's how long it's been.
Okay.
And it was one of the people on my team. But the moral of the story is don't touch people. Don't touch people's bellies. Don't touch people's hair. Do not, just keep your hands to yourself. Remember what your kindergarten teacher told you. Keep your hands to yourself. Do not invade people's space. It's not nice.
Agreed.
And I will say, like, because again, you and I have been friends for a really long time, and I was curious for so long. I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder what your hair feels like. But I never asked, and I never touched it. But I wanted to know. Just because I was curious, because I don't, there's no one in my family has even like white person curly hair. So like I'm just curious.
Yeah. And I think that's where people get upset. That's the microaggression, because it's like again, a toy. It's like something that you're curious about for the sake of like you, I don't know. I guess the best way I can describe it is it's a toy. It reminds me of some memes or some this one Instagram video I saw that where like white people would touch this little kid's hair. He had dreadlocks, and they touch his hair and be like, "Oh, I wish my hair would do that," which white people love to say. Love to say, "I wish my hair would do that." And this little baby boy said, "Do you, Karen? Do you really?" Or whatever the person's name was.
And they're always like, "Oh, I want my hair like that." Do you, Sandy? Do you really? Bro.
And it was so funny because no, you don't. You don't want to do that. And that goes into cultural appropriation and all this. And if you do want to do it, you want to do it as a trend or a costume or a dress up. You don't wish your hair did that. You don't. We know what your standard of beauty is, and it's not this. So don't be like, "Oh, can I touch it? I wish my hair would do." No, you don't.
But how do you know that?
I know.
How do you know?
Because it's not the standard of beauty, because I know in my country what's beautiful and whatever. I'm not going to say my hair's not beautiful now, because I know my hair's beautiful now, but
I love your hair. I think your hair is amazing.
But you don't wish that your hair would do that. It's different. It's not like, oh, I wish. And it's like, it goes back to that thing, that comedy special I was telling you about with Chris Rock, where it was like, there's something about like, there's a paralyzed white boy in a wheelchair right now that won't switch places with me. And I'm Chris Rock and I'm rich. He's probably like, I'm just going to ride this white thing on out, see where it takes me. And okay, that's an extreme comedic version of it, but that's it. Like, you're white, you know what this white thing gets you. There's no way in hell you want anything. You don't want this. You don't want to switch places with me. So don't say it, because it's just not true. And this old white lady talking about she wishes her hair would like puff up into a coily fro like mine. No, you don't. Because I can barely wear my hair like that to the office without you saying something about it being wild or it looks better when it's straightened or whatever. Like, that's how I know. No?
I mean, I cannot disagree with probably the whole thing of like, oh, like I'm going to trade and be a Black person, right? Like, there's legitimacy in that. Not that I'm like, oh, hell no, I don't want to be Black, but just the fact that we know what happens, right? Like we know how people treat people. I think, and again, like I know that I'm sometimes really idealistic. I think it is hard, or it is tricky to say something like, well, I just know that all people, or like all this group of people, or none of this group of people. Like when we talk in absolutes like that, it does rub me the wrong way, because like, okay, sure, probably straight hair is way easier to take care of, but honestly, like I feel like it's flat, like it doesn't do anything. When I look at your hair, like in the episode where you had it like just out, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's all bouncy and it looks beautiful and it frames your face and like you just look like you glow, like you do. And so there is a part of me that I'm like, I kind of wish my hair would do that. Like I wish that I could have like voluminous, pretty, curly hair. Or you know, like with my husband. So my husband has pretty, it's not like fully kinky hair, but it's pretty kinky hair. And like we've talked that like I like if we're fortunate enough to have kids one day, like I want them to have curly hair. Like I want them to have, because I think it just looks so, I really do. I think it looks pretty. And I'm not saying that I think straight hair is ugly. I just think it really is, like I'm genuine when I say like I think your hair is beautiful. Or the fact that you can put it up and literally put 3 bobby pins in it and it stays. I mean, that is miraculous, because like my hair does not do that. I could put 55 bobby pins in it and it's falling down within like 2 hours. So that is, and I mean that genuinely, but I feel like I'm probably making you really mad right now because you're like, no, you don't.
I do want to say that, just for everybody else, that she is speaking from experience, because I broke my collarbone one year and she stayed with me and helped me get ready for work in the morning and did my hair. So she's not just saying like, I realize that you might appreciate that I can be pretty or am pretty.
You are pretty.
Okay, yes, I can appreciate that, and I can trust and believe that. I guess where for me I get passionate and maybe my volume increased just now is when people are like, oh, I wish my hair would do that. Because no, you don't. Like me, if I looked at your hair and I'm like, I wish my hair did that. Like I truly wish that, because that is what I've been told and believed my whole life was beautiful. Like I wish my hair would do that and stay like that. I wish I could go swimming, get out of the water and finish drying and it would look like that.
Oh, it does not. No. It does not look like this.
It's not that easy, girl.
No.
But on the other hand, I just don't. Or maybe it goes back to the why again, and maybe that's some self-exploration that I need to do or we need to do, because maybe that's why it makes me upset and I get passionate about it, because I know if I looked at you and I said that, I truly meant it. And why do I mean it? Because I know that that this is the standard of beauty and I don't have the standard of beauty, right? I mean, let me just say, like, I've evolved since I probably turned 25. I love my hair. I love it so much. I relaxed my hair for all my life. And I just recently, like I said, as like probably 25, 26, stopped and embraced it. And it took a while to embrace it and love it, even though I was showcasing it. So at this point, I'm not, there's no self-loathing or self-hate. I love my hair, but I know for the first 25, 26 years of my life, I would look at you or someone like you and say, I wish my hair would do that. And I truly did. But I know that you never look at someone with hair like me and think, oh, I wish my hair would do that and it comes from the same kind of place, the same kind of hollow, shame, less than kind of place. Maybe that's why I'm like, no, there's no way. You don't. I know you.
But does it have to come from well, I don't want to say but, because I'm not trying to invalidate. I guess my question is, does it need to come from a place of shame to be genuine?
My first answer is yes, because the standard of beauty is long, flowing mermaid hair.
Well, and I am not disagreeing with that. I mean, if you look at, everything that's pumped down our throats every single day, clearly that is the case. I just think that there are people who see beyond that and don't say, oh, well, only people who look like this are what I would consider beautiful. And I'm sure, obviously I'm sure that there's plenty of people who say it and are disingenuous. I just don't know that we can say like every single person doesn't mean it. And then the only reason that I say that is because when I tell, like that day that I was doing your hair and I was like, I wish my hair would do this. And we talked about this. This was like it came up in something about how white people say like, oh, I wish my hair would do that. And you told me that you got really mad. And I immediately flashed back to that day. I was like, I said that to you. I totally said it, but I meant it. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't mean it. Because, and again, like, not that I don't hate my hair, but like anytime I had to go to a school dance or anything like that, I'd have to like wash my hair 2 days prior. It had to be dirty when I went to the hairdresser to put it up. She'd have to put hairspray and mousse in it. And then I would literally spend 3 hours and I would have piles of bobby pins because for my hair to stay, there's no texture to it. So like if I put it up in a twist or I put it up in anything, it just immediately wants to slide down and just do this. This is what it wants to do. So I can't do anything with it. And that's why like I was jealous because it was like, shoot, 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 pin. And you're like, oh, here's 3 bobby pins. I'm like, what the is this? 3, what am I going to do with 3 bobby pins? You're like, yeah, just do it. And it stayed. Like you.
It might have been more than 3.
Yeah, it was like 6.
Well, okay. I mean, I guess good conversation, and maybe I need to think about it more because my first inkling is to be like, stop saying that. Stop patronizing me. And like that little kid, do you, Barbara? Do you? No, you don't. And it might come from the self-hating part. Like maybe it's like, I wouldn't do my hair like this unless I had to. And maybe that's something that me and other people of color might need to look at, right? Like I wouldn't do my hair like this unless I had to. Like if I had my choice, it wouldn't be this. So now I'm projecting that onto somebody else.
And I hope I'm not coming across in a way that's like, I'm not trying to say that you're wrong or that what you feel is not real. It just, I'm sad because I really meant it. I really did mean it. And I really think your hair is beautiful.
Did you?
I did. Stop asking me that.
Did you really?
Don't call me Karen.
No, I get it.
Yeah. And maybe it's a who too, right? Again, because we're friends. Like I've done your hair for you, which was really scary. I had no idea what I was doing. So
Scary for me too, because I had to go to work.
I know. Well,
How I was feeling, I was like, "Oh Lord, here we
I
go."
know. I was like, I cannot let my friend go to work looking like a fool, and I have never styled like African American hair in my life. I need to do a good job. So I would just like to thank you for your kindness and instruction.
Maybe we can share a photo of how it turned out right here for everybody to see what great job you did.
Yeah, let me know how I did. Let me know. But I think I sent you off looking presentable.
Let the people be the judge.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun. Thank you for indulging us in the Put a Finger Down challenge. I thought it was cool to see some similarities and differences, and also chat a little bit deeper on some things that are affecting our conversations and our interactions with each other and with others in the world. So,
and conversation today that we've not had previously. So it was legitimately like fresh today.
True.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone, and tune in next week for our next episode. We're really excited and really proud of what we are evolving and the content that we're putting out. And I'm really proud that we're taking the opportunity to remember that now is not the time to be fragile.
And let us know, as always, any thoughts, aha moments, any topics that you would like us to cover in a future episode. And as you are out there in the world, interacting with each other, choose kindness. We'll see you next week.